お世話になっております。Cruxay でございます。Welcome back, or welcome to the Cruxay in Japan channel. For those of you who are new here, I'm Cruxay, a Canadian living in Japan for the last decade. On this channel, it's my goal to share with you my experiences living in Japan and learning Japanese in hopes that it can help you achieve your goals with Japanese and or living in Japan. Got the Crushed It tea on today. Feeling good, feeling like I'm gonna crush out a video today, maybe two. On that note, this video is going to be broken up into two segments, two parts, and the second half will be released at a later date to yet be determined. Alright, so today I want to dive into a topic that is probably on your mind if you're considering moving to Japan, and that would be, are you really sure you want to live in Japan? Like, really? Let me know in the comments section down below, guys, if you want to live in Japan and why. I've spent nearly a third of my life living in Japan, and I've seen many well-meaning individuals flame out of Japan only to return to their home country feeling like they just couldn't make it work. I'll be honest, in my first year here, I also had some pretty serious doubts if I could last. And that was coming off the back of some pretty bold claims that I'd be nothing short of a massive success here as a starry-eyed 20-something-year-old.
I'm a door! What? I'm a door!
The truth of the matter is, once the hype wears off, you start to realize that Japan is just another place us human beings go to do the business of work, play, and make a living for ourselves. In this video, I'd like to go over 3 reasons why it's maybe not such a good idea to live in Japan. In my own opinion, of course. Alright, let's get into it. Life here isn't like the animes or dramas that you watch. Despite what you may believe based on the Japanese-related media that you consume, life here is not like one of your Japanese animes.
It's just like one of my Japanese animes!
Oh, what the f*** are you talking about?
Life in Japan, particularly in Tokyo, is not much different than life in places like Toronto, New York, London, Paris, Sydney, Shanghai, Hong Kong, for the most part. Yes, of course, there are major cultural differences in all these places, but what they all do share in common is that they are major economic drivers of their respective countries. This may come as a surprise to you, but people here work normal-ass jobs, just like anywhere else in the developed world. In fact, they work so much here that they even have a word for death from overwork, karoshi. Although the narrative in recent years is that things are getting better, the truth of the matter is overwork culture, or zangyo culture, is still very much alive and well today. When I started working in Japan back in 2012, during my interview process with the company I joined, the hiring manager literally told me that be prepared to work until midnight every day or later, and Saturdays and Sundays 3 out of 4 weeks of the month. Like I said, I was all starry-eyed and ready to work my ass off to succeed, so I saw nothing wrong with that at the time. But looking at it in hindsight, I can see the cultural implications that it had. You are a minority here, and you will be made to feel like one. Some of you might be saying, well, I'm already a minority in my home country. So what? But there is a big difference about what it means to be a minority in somewhere like Canada or even the US compared to somewhere like Japan. Countries like Canada and the US were literally founded on principles of difference and diversity and have relatively young histories as countries. European countries all have their differences, but their proximity to one another allows for constant and frequent discussion around cultural differences. Japan, on the other hand, has a history dating back thousands of years and is an island nation, meaning it has no immediate neighbors in any direction, unless you count the dolphins. And if you know Japan, you don't want to count the dolphins. Essentially, just as recently as 1854, Japan started interacting with the outside world. This isn't meant to be a history lesson, it's simply to shed some light on the fact that it hasn't even really been 200 years out of Japan's almost 30,000 year history that it's had to play nice with other countries. That's literally 0.66% of its history. Current stats estimate that Japan is at around 2% of its entire population being non-Japanese, or roughly 2 million people, give or take. Basically, my point is, Japan is not really used to dealing with people who are not Japanese. So, like it or not, a lot of the stuff that goes on here can be straight up racist, albeit completely unintentional.
This is a pen.
すごい。
これは pen です。
同じペンでもやはり吐き出す量が英語と日本語で違いましたよね。
Not to mention, literally every conversation you have with a Japanese person for the first time will go like this. 僕はカナダから参りました。カナダいいとこなんでしょう。ちなみになぜ日本に来ましたか？
Where are you from? You は何しに日本へ? Why did you come to Japan? You は何しに日本へ?
どちらの方と？
私フランス人です。
何しに日本へ?
So if you're an SJW, Japan is likely not the best place in the world for you, in all honesty. They're literally decades behind many other countries in regards to being PC about most things. Language barriers are real. We've all seen those terrible English memes making fun of how bad Japan's English is, right? But alluding to my last point, Japan doesn't really see the need to speak or communicate in great English, as 98 to 99% of the population can communicate with them just fine in Japanese anyways.
Umbrella?
Yes!
Umbrella!
Umbrella! Okay, very good.
Umbrella! 差しながら
English!
So in most cases, close enough really is good enough. Because who cares about that measly 1 to 2% who can't really understand Japanese anyways? Pfft. That's their problem. As you can imagine, this creates major problems for those who want to live here without having necessarily mastered the language first. As such, career options can be quite limited, and most of the time your only option would be to teach English to a bunch of people who honestly don't really care how good their English is.
English!
And if you're one of those whose Japanese is good enough, you may be lucky enough to be granted a very low-level administrative job at a Japanese company. Remember the ones I mentioned earlier that will literally work you to death? And then you'll discover very quickly how not Japanese your Japanese is, because you don't have every single cultural nuance down pat in everything you're saying. Because why would you? You're not Japanese. This isn't meant to scare you, and there are of course workarounds which I'll explain in my next video, as well as I have explained in previous videos as well. Link here or here. But the fact that Japan has some of the lowest TOEIC and TOEFL scores in the world should be something you're a little bit aware of before packing up your whole life in a suitcase and moving over here with N5 Japanese. That's it for this time, guys. As mentioned, I will be making a follow-up video to this one with 3 reasons why it is a great reason to live in Japan, and that will be coming up shortly. Let me know what you thought of my reasons in this video. Did you agree with them? Did you disagree with them? Anything I left out that was quite important or quite major? And if you've made it this far in the video, comment "crushed it" down below to let me know that you made it this far. I'll link up part 2 of this video as soon as it's ready, guys, but in the meantime, why don't you check out one of these.